Advancements in new industries such as steel, chemicals, and electricity led to many new possibilities in production from 1750 to 1900. In terms of steel, many new products were made more durable with this finding. Steel instantly became a staple of the world's industrial economy. Britain in specific led the world's industrial revolution with its early commitment to coal mining, steam power, textile mills, machinery, railways, and shipbuilding. Railways and many ships were made of steel. Also, many factories were made out of steel. These advancements in steel and iron made industry flourish. Electricity played a big role in the Industrial Revolution. Prior to the proven discovery of electricity, people used water and steam power to make their machines work. Electricity was then generated and used in many more ways, such as the light bulb or the telegraph. Steam power is one of the most important and key aspects of the Industrial Revolution. The invention of the steam engine created many changes in addition to the technology of the time, including steam-powered locomotives. Steam locomotives are vehicles that run on rails or tracks and are powered by steam engines. Along with that, the steam engine improved commerce. Another advancement in industry during the period 1750 to 1900 was the spinning jenny. This revolutionized the process of cotton spinning. It made making things out of cotton a lot easier, especially clothes.
I'm going to be talking about the factors that contributed to Germany becoming an industrial power in the late 1800s. Some of these factors included iron and coal resources, railroads, factories, trained German industrialists, and the government promoting economic development. Another factor would include the House of Krupp. This was an enormous industrial complex that produced steel and weapons for a world market. The next factor was August Hyson, a business tycoon who between 1871 and 1914 turned a small steel factory of 70 workers into a giant industrial empire with over 50,000 employees. He was extremely important to Germany's industry because he was able to supply so many jobs. Another important figure in the history of Germany is Otto von Bismarck. He was the Chancellor of Prussia from 1862 until 1871 when he became the Chancellor of Germany. He was a conservative nationalist, and he led Prussia to victory against Austria in 1866 and France in 1870. And he was responsible for the creation of German Empire. By helping to create the German Empire, Bismarck actually helped the industry because of the nationalism and unification that he brought to the new empire. Another important factor was social welfare. These were programs that were created to help people in Germany. Some examples are public schools, health and accident insurance, and cheap transportation. Overall, Germany had ample iron and coal resources, the basic ingredients for industrial development. A disciplined and educated workforce also helped the economy, and a rapidly growing population from 41 million in 1871 to 67 million by 1914. This provided a huge home market along with larger supply of industrial workers.
From 1750 to 1900, there were many advancements in transportation and communication that affected trade migrations and global interactions. The invention of the railroad was major in improving transportation, and it led to many global interactions. Along with that, the invention of the telegraph improved communication immensely. Also, the ability to transport raw materials and finished goods over long distances was improved as a result of the advancements in transportation. The steam engine in specific was huge in improving transportation. It powered many early locomotives, and it helped people get to specific places quickly. Steam engines powered many early trains. The ability to communicate across long distances improved dramatically during the Industrial Revolution. It began with the invention of the electrical telegraph by Samuel Morse in 1844. This system allowed for messages to be transmitted much quicker and cheaper than old methods. There were three main types of transportation that were improved during the Industrial Revolution. They were waterways, roads, and railroads. The roads also improved immensely during this time period. Transportation was important because people were starting to live in the West. During this time period, transportation via water was the cheapest way to move heavy products such as coal and iron. As a result, canals were widened and deepened to allow more boats to pass. Robert Fulton made the first steam-powered engine to power a steamboat, and in 1807 he demonstrated its use by going from New York City to Albany via the Hudson River.
I'm now going to discuss the hazards of industrial life. This includes pollution, overcrowding, poor working conditions, and child labor. First off, due to high unemployment rates, workers were very easily replaceable and had no bargaining power with their employers. This gave employers the ability to treat their employees however they wanted. This included paying very low wages and having very poor working conditions. Safety hazards were everywhere in these factories. Machines didn't have any safety covers, and children as young as 5 years old were operating them. Iron workers regularly worked in temperatures of 130 degrees and higher every day. Accidents on the job were very common. These factories were dusty, dirty, and dark. The only light source was sunlight that came through a few windows. Because the machines ran on steam from fires, there was smoke everywhere. Many people ended up with eye problems and lung disease. Next, small children had to work in coal mines without candles if their families were too poor to buy candles, which many were. The children were also beaten by the miners if they fell asleep. Young girls had to pull sledges or carts with coal all day long, deforming their pelvic bones and causing a lot of miscarriages and childbirth. Children did not get any sunlight in these coal mines or factories. They didn't get a lot of physical activity, and they didn't get a lot of education. This led to deformities and a shorter than average length and height. Should someone get injured on the job and be unable to work, they would be abandoned by their employers. Wages would be stopped immediately, and no medical attendance would be given to them. Injured workers usually lost their job and did not get any compensation.
While industrialization was taking place, women were working for their right to vote. The term for this is women's suffrage. Women's suffrage is the right of women to vote in elections. Beginning in the late 1800s, women worked for broad-based economic and political equality and for social reforms, and sought to change voting laws in order to allow them to vote. Women felt they had earned the right to vote with their efforts in the textile industry and the other tough jobs they had to take on. A major reform movement that won widespread support was the effort to make education available to more children. The public school movement was led by Horace Mann. This took place during the Industrial Revolution and was an effort to get children of lower classes educated. This would make it so they could have better lives than they did as children, since education was a big part in getting a decent job. Another major movement during the Industrial Revolution was the labor movement. The labor movement first began during the time period of the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century. At this time, working-class people were often exploited by wealthy owners and treated horribly. To better understand the situation facing the people in the Industrial Revolution, it's first important to understand the political and economic views of the time. The dominant ideology of the Industrial Revolution centered on individualistic values such as classical liberalism and laissez-faire capitalism. Both of these systems promoted the idea that the government should play as little role as possible in the economic lives of people. As such, there were very few government regulations in place to protect workers, and the wealthy owners were allowed to exploit them in many ways.
I'm now going to discuss the differences in socialism and capitalism. In a capitalist economy, property and business are owned by the individuals. The production and prices of goods and services are determined by how in demand they are and how difficult they are to produce. Theoretically, this dynamic drives companies to make the best products they can as cheaply as they can. This means that consumers can choose the best and cheapest products. Business owners should be driven to find more efficient ways of producing quality goods quickly and cheaply. This emphasis on efficiency takes priority over equality, which is of little concern to the capitalist system. The argument is that inequality is the driving force that encourages innovation, which then pushes economic development. In a capitalist economy, the state does not directly employ the workforce. This can lead to unemployment during times of economic recession. Now, in a socialist economy, the state owns and controls the major means of production. In some socialist economic models, worker cooperatives have primacy over production. Other socialist economic models allow individual ownership of enterprise and property, albeit with high taxes and stringent government controls. The primary concern of the socialist model, in contrast to the capitalist model, is an equitable redistribution of wealth and resources from the rich to the poor. To achieve this, the state intervenes in the labor market. In fact, in a socialist economy, the state is the primary employer. During times of economic hardship, the socialist state can order hiring so there is full employment, even if workers are not performing tasks that they are particularly in demand from the market. Overall, capitalism is a market-driven economy. The state does not intervene, leaving it up to market forces to shape society and life. Socialism is characterized by state ownership of businesses and services. Central planning is used to attempt to make society more equitable. Most countries are mixed economies, falling in between the extremes of capitalism and socialism.
Industrialization impacted and led to imperialism for several reasons. When industries began to develop in various countries, there were several things that were necessary. One of those things was the need for resources. Industrialized countries found they were able to obtain cheaper resources from their colonies than from other countries. Thus, countries wanted to gain colonies so they could obtain the resources needed in their industries. Another factor showing how industrialization contributed to imperialism is that the industrialized countries needed places where they could sell their products. The colonies were a great place for these countries to sell their finished products. The industrialized countries knew they could rely on their colonies to buy the finished products made in their industries. This helped to promote imperialism. Having colonies allowed a country to protect its world trade. The growth of industries enhanced the need for countries to become imperialistic, so establishing colonies and the growth of industries were related.